Mayor McKay,
Here.
Vice Mayor Jablonski,
Here.
Councilmember Hartman,
Here.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Here.
and Councilmember Fisickelli is absent. He's been resigned, I know, but we need that.
Yeah. Okay, so could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You betcha.
All right. Thank you all for coming. You want to hand it to Marty? Who we give it to first?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Welcome to the public. And tonight is the first public hearing for September 12, 2019. We're going to cover a summary. We have PowerPoint presentation handouts for every person who would like one back in the room. We have some up at the podium. We have some up at the town clerk's table. We also have the proposed budget book that's been distributed over the past 2 months. This is also online, and this PowerPoint, effective tomorrow, will be on. For those of you on TV that are watching, you can catch it posted to the website for the town first thing tomorrow morning. What we'll do is we'll go into the 4 components. I'd like, if we could, Counselor, to have the fire first read, and we'll go through the PowerPoint, if that would be okay with you.
That's fine. Russell, if you could read it in, then we would need a motion for discussion.
This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving the final fire services assessment relating to the provision of fire protection services, facilities, and programs in the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida for fiscal year 2019 through 2020, commencing October 1st, 2019. Providing purpose and definitions, providing for the imposition and computation of fire protection assessments, incorporating the fire protection assessment report, providing for the legislative determination of special benefit and fair apportionment, establishing the rate of assessment, directing the preparation of a final assessment roll, providing for an exemption for veterans, service-connected, total and permanent disability, authorizing a public hearing, and directing the provision of notice thereof, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Clerk. Okay, moving on.
So moved.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Now proceed.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Hartman. First slide, we have our elected officials, your charter officers, and we're going to cover to the next slide our summary. These are our proposed rates, the 4 items tonight that we're covering. This is our fiscal year 1920 proposed rates and fees as compared to our current year, which is soon to be the end of the year. Our proposed fiscal year 2020 rate fees, you will see our total of the rollback rate of 4.6564 is a net decrease of 0.1747 back to the rollback rate as compared to the prior year, and that is derived from the difference between the 4.8311 to the 4.6564. As it relates to our fire assessment, you will note our residential dwelling units, our major component unit for our fire assessment, as proposed, will have a $20.14 decrease, which is about a 3.7% decrease as compared to the prior year, fiscal year 2019. And our solid waste, as proposed, has a 21.77 decrease or greater, depending on your lot tranche sizes for residential assessment for next year, and that is a 5.4% reduction. For what right now we're covering is our fire assessment rates. This is based, we're going to have the introduction. It's a three-step assessment methodology, which is unchanged from the prior year, utilizing our 2011 consultant study. We're going to show you our proposed and actual rates. It's a history, a 5-year history by category. And then we're going to present to you tonight our municipal rates compared to other municipalities within Broward County. The background for the fire assessment: the assessment is permitted by Florida statute 166.021 and 166.041 and is adopted by Town Ordinance 2001-09. The Ordinance 2001-09 requires that an annual rate be established each fiscal year. Going specifically into the 4 categories, you will see the first page gives you the residential versus vacant agricultural up top. It's a dark gray. You will see the decline, the $20 and such from $543.65 down to the $523.51, and then the vacant agricultural down. All rates as proposed are down from the prior year. The next page will give you our next 3, which is our industrial warehouse, our commercial, with the presentation of what was revised from our special meeting to accommodate the change in the new designation, giving it a 1-year abeyance. And finally, the institutional, you will see a 29-cent to 25-cent reduction. Now, as we compare other municipalities, it's important to note that a number of municipalities subsidize their fire protection. And the fire assessment, I know my fire personnel, if anyone's here in the audience tonight, they always want me to make sure I say, fire assessment is for fire protection, not for your ambulance and not for fire rescue. The fire protection's assessment costs with property tax revenue. Some municipalities don't even assess a fire assessment, and therefore they fund 100% from their general fund. And when that occurs, it impacts their millage rate. So the Southwest Ranches policy does not normally subsidize any fire protection costs from its general fund. The numbers that have been provided to the Broward County property appraisers, and as well as provided here for cost comparison, are not truly reflective of 100% full cost recovery for fire protection. For example, Sunrise has indicated that their proposed fire assessment represents only 70% of full cost recovery. Therefore, you will see when we get to the next slide that municipalities with an unchanged assessment rate are likely subsidizing their fire operations in the case of a shortfall or utilizing their fund balance to fund their fire capital projects. Just to reiterate, our proposed decrease of 3.7% is a $20.14 per residential dwelling unit reduction. So you will see that we are at the top. However, we are one of only 2 that are proposing off to the right a decrease of minus 3.7%. And over the course of the years, what has been occurring that I've noticed is the rates have inched up. So we're no longer way above the others. Most municipalities are taking the practice of full cost recoveries and are migrating there slowly. The white column, which is on the far right, you will see some have proposed dramatic increase in excess of 10%. We have Fort Lauderdale at 21.48%, Deerfield Beach at a 34.29%, Coral Springs on the next page, use number 17 at 13.69%. .91, and the other municipality, which is Wilton Manors, the only other one to propose a decrease is at much less of a 1.42%. That's all I have right now. Public comment. I'd like to turn it back to the mayor and the council for any questions, comments, directions,
Okay.
and voting. Thank you.
Any comments up here first, or you want to just pass to the public? All right. Open to the public. Any input from the public on this matter?
Oh, false start. There we go.
I guess we have no comments on this matter. All right, back to us. No, Fred does. Fred is? I thought Fred was turning in just for
I'm sorry, Doug.
public comment, but okay.
Excuse me. I want to thank everyone for the revised fire fee assessment. I still don't understand the previous discussion, but, let's move forward. Remind everyone, I already pay fire fee assessment on my property. If I paid an additional one, I'd be paying double taxation in the form of fire fee assessment. Per a public records request with Russell, there is no data on fires on barns.
Hey, Fred, if you don't mind, we're going to pause you for 1 second. I don't think your mic is on because we're not picking you up.
Do I do anything, or?
No, they're going to come down and check it.
Fine. This way I can do it in 3 minutes. You think it's it? It's me. Definitely on. Okay, she says it's me. It's not the mic. Okay. Thank you. Is that better?
Yes.
All right, I'll start back, but I'll go a little quicker. I want to thank everyone for the revised fire fee assessment. That being said, I was commenting that I still don't understand the July 25th discussion. I already pay a fire fee on my property. If I paid an additional one, it would be double taxation or double fire fee assessment. There is no data to support an additional barn fire fee assessment. Did a public records request with Russell. The town has no records on barn fires in the last 4 or 5 years, whatever the request was. The fire study, when it was performed in 2011, there were barns in this town, probably a few more than we have today. It's not in the study. There was no data to support an additional assessment on barns. So that all being said, I thank you, and I hope we move forward and discuss this next year after a new fire study.
Any additional public comment on this matter?
Mr. Mayor, this is just discussion on the fire assessment, so come up whenever you want. Do you want to talk about the fire assessment? The card is for
card
7
is public
PM
comment.
town council meeting.
Yeah,
No problem.
Mr. Mayor, they had reached out to me and asked to put this exclusively on the agenda as a discussion item for their particular scenario. So rather than add another 20 minutes, maybe a half hour to the meeting, I told them that I would ask you for additional time so they can explain their position.
Don't know that that's fair under the circumstances with
Doug,
how we run these.
you let your friends talk a long time, lots of time, so just be reasonable.
I would tell you that if I extend it to one person, I extend it to all people, and I add a minute lots of times to people.
I think
But
people would
I
disagree
don't
with
know, you sound like you're asking for like an indefinite amount of time
No,
here.
I said be reasonable.
Yeah, but I usually let people go, and if I extend it, I usually extend it for a minute.
Oh, don't make you time me. Don't make me time you. You extended plenty of
I'm
time.
not. You see that
I'm
clock over
asking
there?
you to be
That's what
reasonable.
time
Hey,
says.
guys,
This
this
thing
isn't a
times up.
challenge. I mean,
Yep.
we do have a decorum here. We have a procedure to follow. Do we not play by the rules or not? I mean, that's it. Let's.
I mean,
just
they're
do
going to
it.
have public comment. This is
Okay.
just the fire study
Public
part.
comment, though, will be after we vote on the fire study, right?
Yes.
So what's your point? You said public comment.
Well, the meeting part is coming up after this. This is the budget related to the fire and the waste and whatnot.
Which we vote on and make it permanent for this coming year, right?
Correct.
So if they want to make their case why they think what we're doing is unfair, you're not allowing to make their case.
I didn't say that. I just don't know
Okay.
that I should allow them any additional time because of it.
Use your best judgment.
Go right ahead.
Would you like to hear our objective now, or would you like to relate this for later on?
This would be the time.
This would be the time. Fair enough. Is this on? Okay. Good evening. My name is Bill Bryce. With Kayla's Climbing the Wolf. I'm appearing on behalf of Diamond Eye Stables, LLC. The address is 6200 Sterling Road. This is revisiting an issue that I brought to your attention at the last meeting, specifically with Diamond Eye Stables property being categorized as a commercial property. We contest that our Diamond Eye's property is a ag vacant property, as been discussed before, and should be categorized as such for the fiscal year 2019-2020, as are all the other barns that are similarly situated. I had reached out to Town Council, Mr. Polikoff, with respect to this issue, because our last communication had indicated that our property would be classified as a commercial property and charged at the 90 cents per square foot, as opposed to the 95.21 per agricultural acre. Now, what I had presented before you is a transcript of the meeting where the partner at our firm, Mr. Kalis, had appeared on August 20th. The transcript, if you read the transcript that I provided you, would illustrate the fact that the council members, including Mr. Polikoff, had indicated that the $95.21 per agricultural acre should be the amount applied to our barns for the fiscal year 2019-2020. Diamond Eye Stables has received a letter again stating that they will be charged at 90 cents per square foot. Under the 95.21 per square acreage, or excuse me, per agricultural acre, my client would be charged under $1,000. By contrast, the assessment that was received in the mail was $11,000. So what we're looking for is not to be treated differently than any other ag barns that have an ag exemption. We have horses on our properties, as well as the other properties have, and all the other properties, less, for our understanding, 5 parcels that are being charged at that ag vacant rate of the 95.25 per agricultural acre. We simply propose to the council that my client be treated as such and be afforded the same treatment vis-a-vis the charge of the $95.21 per agricultural acre. There has been no differentiation, as illustrated, at least to my knowledge, between our barn and other barns that are similarly situated that would justify our barn being treated as a commercial entity. As the council knows, by default, in order to be granted an agricultural exemption, you must have a commercial enterprise on that property. So in and of itself, being listed as a commercial enterprise does not distinguish our property, nor does the fact that we had applied previously for a certificate of usage differentiate our property from the other agricultural properties. As such, again, we're here because we just want to be treated similarly to all the other barns that are afforded the $95.21 per agricultural acre, as opposed to being treated and differentiated as a commercial property with the 90 cents per square foot charge as a commercial property.
Could I just ask you to
Sure.
tell us the address of that property?
6200. It's 62 Sterling, but it's Melaleuca as well. 6200
Melaleuca and? Oh, 130th,
Yes,
correct.
6200.
6200.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Time's up.
Thank you.
Any additional public comment on this matter?
Fred Siegel, Broward County Farm Bureau, 2121 North State Road 7, Margate. I just want to ask that you please reevaluate when you do this, when you do your study, and look carefully at the statutes. Because 604.50 says non-residential farm buildings are exempt from all codes and fees. I believe it's Chapter 170 that addressed the issue with fire assessment fees and the exemption on pole barns, but if you read carefully into that statute, it doesn't allow the assessment to be on the structure, but on the land under the structure, and therefore should be assessed at a land rate, not at a structure rate. So keep that in mind when you do readdress this, please, and look carefully.
Any additional public comment on this matter?
Michelle McBride, 13851 East Palomino Drive. I don't have a horse in this race, but I had to speak up about how wrong all of this is. Like Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere, and this is injustice. Many have spoken about how it makes no sense to increase assessments on the agricultural properties while decreasing the assessments on businesses such as Lowe's and Publix. How is it possible to lump them in the same category? Would we even think of Southwest ranches the same if we didn't have these agricultural properties? What troubles me and should worry all of the residents in this town is how it all came up. Anyone can YouTube the town hall meeting on July 11th. I encourage you all to do so. It's just so fishy. Mr. Burns using terms like fasten your seatbelt to boost morale and gain public support, telling everyone their taxes are going down. He also told the council that they were voting on a reduction of fire assessments. Keith Poliakoff says, oh, and by the way, some people are going to get a big surprise, and explains the situation as if BCPA started this. But now we know that this is not the case. I'd like to know, if it wasn't BCPA, who created this hardship for my neighbors and friends? It's unnecessary, unfair, and should never have happened.
Any additional public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Back to the council. Any comments? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hartman?
We're voting on implementing the way things are. We voted last time. Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm confused on how I'm voting on this. Are we leaving it the way it reads right now?
A motion to approve or to accept, this is the final fire assessment, which is based upon Council Members Hartman's motion from the last meeting, which took the 100 and, I'm going to forget the number, 123 barns and that were newly assessed
Right.
out of the equation. And I believe you seconded that motion.
That's taking the other ones out? Why? I'm still confused.
This is just approving what was approved the last time. There's nothing new. No one else has added to it. It's just approving what was approved last time.
So I can vote no if I so choose?
You can vote any way you feel.
Vote any way you like.
So it will change. It can change, though.
Once they approve it.
Or is this just to
Once they approve it, it's done.
I don't understand.
I understand. Hey, listen, I'm not going to take and be badgered and bullied and made to feel bad. I don't understand it. I want to make a clear and precise decision for everybody. And if you can't give me that, I'm going to sit here all night. How about that?
Dee,
I'm going to understand this.
Dee, can I ask Keith a question?
And you can smirk, Mrs. McBride. It doesn't bother me at all.
Go
Especially
ahead, Bob.
coming
Ask
from
Keith
you.
a question.
We've already,
Okay.
hold on, Dee, read the decorum policy. Is there a way that we can back up? I mean, maybe there's other questions that the council, I mean, I'm amazed we had no discussion. We just went to a
Yeah.
vote. So maybe we want another minute or two to discuss this so Dee's clear?
You can absolutely hold off a second. There's nothing that would prohibit that. But I'm going to try to explain this as best as I can, and please jump in if I don't. At the last meeting, that was the one where a lot of residents came out because of the fact that for the first time ever, their barns were placed in a commercial category.
Correct.
Previous to that, there were several barns that were in a commercial category, but what was the big surprise was that so many new ones have been placed into the commercial category. After a very lengthy meeting, Councilmember Hartman made a motion, which you seconded, to basically not charge those new barns a fire assessment for this year, and that the town would pay from the general fund revenue the difference for just this year, and then going forward, you would have a fire study to try to fully address the issue. That, if I remember correctly, was approved on a 3-1, if I remember
3-1.
correctly, a 3-1 basis. Tonight's hearing brings back that last vote, which would be the exact same thing as the last time, which was Councilmember Hartman's motion to pull out the 123 new ones that had never been assessed previously, to have a fire study, which is not included in this resolution, but we all know it's going to occur, and to move on to the future. The problem legally would be that everyone's already received their notices. So if you are to change this in any way, it would require the town to be the collector for the fire assessment fees in the future. I believe that's correct, right, Marty?
So hold on, Keith. Last time when I asked that question, you told me the town becomes the collector like we were back in 11 if we raise it.
If you raised it.
Okay, but that's not any
At,
change.
at this point, if it's changed in any way,
Changed in any way.
if it's changed lower, we would have to be the collector. If it's changed higher, we'd have to be the collector.
That changed from the last time, 2 weeks
Yes,
ago when we
because-
voted.
Because now the residents have received their notice from the Broward County property appraiser. And that's what the difference is. They've now received their notices. And Marty, please correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yes, in addition, it'd be expensive first-class mailing. We'd have to re-advertise, and we'd have to have another hearing.
Yep.
We must obtain a minimum of 3 votes tonight.
So Keith, this brings up questions from me as well. I mean, Dee, I don't know, maybe you want to finish out what you were asking.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So at the last meeting, representative from Diamond Eyes Council had asked me some questions, and I didn't respond to them because I wanted to go back and watch the videos. And my motion was to exempt the barns, the commercial barns, and I went back and I watched the video 3 times, and in multiple places, but one very specifically when I was stating the motion, was to include Diamond Eyes with the rest of the barns. And we were talking about 4 other barns that I'm not sure if anybody yet has been able to identify. Maybe it's been done, but I'm not sure if it's germane. The point is that I called out Diamond Eyes, and then you translated that into a number which I think at the time was 138. Now I'm hearing 120 something.
I don't remember that.
Okay, I'm not trying to cross-examine. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. But it was clear in my motion and my intent that Diamond Eyes was to be included. Now I'm hearing from you new barns. I don't know what new barns means, but whatever that number is supposed. Now, you know, when you're rattling off a number like that, I wasn't clear on what that number meant, but my intention was. So if we vote on this tonight and everything is supposed to be like it was last time, that was my intention. Nobody said no Diamond Eyes, so that would be included in this motion to accept our fire fees as they're charted by Marty.
Can I jump in here real fast? 'Cause I second your motion, and I totally understood it, that we were excluding anybody in litigation.
Check the documentation that Diamond Eyes provided,
I
their
watched the
attorneys
video
provided.
4 times.
Sorry? Well,
I
I'm
watched
not,
the video 4 times.
okay, they have,
You clearly stated that you were excluding that.
no, look at the,
Let me jump in just
can I
one
finish,
quick
Doug?
second.
The transcript that they provided from that meeting, it's in your envelope there, and you've got it in email earlier this week.
I know, but there's 10 pages in here. I don't.
Okay,
can't
you got it this week.
read it.
It specifically quotes what I said. So I saw it on video, I saw it in their writing, and after I saw it enough times, I was pretty confident that that's what I said. So,
So are you excluding them or not excluding them?
not excluding them.
The-
Didn't intend to last time either.
That's-
As I said
that's
then.
Not the way I understood.
That's not the way we voted.
No.
That's not
What
I-
you voted on, now I've made mistakes in voting too, and I got clobbered by you, Mr. Mayor, but the bottom line is you voted. Do we change our mind afterward and say we don't have a vote anymore because We didn't understand it even though we put our hand up and said yes. I don't think it works that way. You can't say that's not what we voted for when it's right in the transcripts. If
Why
you
don't-
weren't paying attention, I'm sorry.
Why don't we ask Marty what that meant?
Why don't we ask Marty what I said?
No, why don't we ask Marty what that meant? My understanding was it was all the new ones that got implemented. That was my understanding.
Okay, then you didn't hear what I said either. And maybe you should go back and look at the video as well, or read the documentation that was provided via email and is in the brown, the manila envelope there.
Yeah, Councilmember Hartman, you clearly stated that you wanted to go back a year.
Right? That was
Okay.
part of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the way I understood it. That litigation occurred earlier.
But that's not all I said.
That's the way I understood it.
Okay, I get that. Like I said, I've made mistakes too. Sitting right here since November, particularly in the first meeting.
Well, I got to tell you, there's a variety of other things that come into play here.
As Marty just told me, the current resolution does not include them. If you want to include them, you could approve this and then make a secondary motion to add them. There'd be nothing that would prohibit that.
That sounds good, but I don't agree with that. And unfortunately, Keith, if the record clearly states that my intention was to include them, and I hate discussing this in front of their counsel, but if the video and the transcript clearly state that I said something and we didn't include it in the motion, do we have liability of them coming back and suing us for not enacting what we voted on?
I'm not worried about this one. You have 3 council members who have all articulated that they did not think they were being included.
No.
Okay, that's why I'm asking. Thank you.
So can we pick up where we left
at?
off on the vote?
Where we at?
What I would recommend, I don't think there's any disagreement on this, well, there may be, but I don't know if there's disagreement on the council to approve things the way they currently are, which would to exclude the new ones. Thereafter, I would recommend that if Councilmember Hartman wants to have a discussion on Diamond Eyes specifically, that you do it following this vote.
I'll do that. Thank you. I'm still a yes.
Now I understand it a little bit better. No.
Yes.
Yes.
So, Mr. Mayor, can I make a motion to include Diamond Eyes in the fire assessments at the rate that the rest of the barns are 0?
Can you do that?
Anybody want to second it?
No, but I would like to add something to that. Unfortunately, I think the date of the litigation was filed on 10/3/18,
Right?
and you got a contribution from them for $1,000 on 10.
Oh, you're playing that card?
It's right here.
I can't wait for the elections. I could talk about your contributors right now. So that might be when it was filed, and I'll go on record right here, right now, saying that my contributor and I had 0 discussion on this prior to election. I'll also go on record saying, I believe I learned about this afterward, like most of the court cases that we have underway, after I became a council member and was sworn in. I know, Keith, did I ever discuss Diamond Eyes with you prior to elections, or I don't know when I learned about it exactly. It was probably late November, early December.
Not that I recall.
Okay, thank you. So Doug, you just
All
opened
right.
a can of worms that you can't put the lid back on. Thank you.
It's not a problem for me.
Exactly.
Okay. We can't have it from the audience. I'm sorry. So,
Yes.
anyway, it failed for no second.
Public comment, folks.
Not public comment
Hey,
again. You're
I
back
want to
in.
know. I want to
You're
know
not done
who's
yet.
running the meeting. Are you running this, Bob? Really?
I'll
mean,
rely
you
on the
seem to
mayor,
be.
too. Thank you.
All right.
Don't thank
Resolution
me
number
yet.
6.
we got to move to solid waste,
Item-
please.
Item 6 is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, relating to the provision of solid waste services, facilities, and programs to residential properties in the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, for fiscal year 2019 through 2020, commencing October 1st, 2019, providing authority for solid waste services, assessments, providing for purpose and definitions, providing findings, incorporating the solid waste special assessment methodology report, providing for an exemption for veteran service-connected total and permanent disability, approving the assessment role, and providing an effective date. I know Marty has a presentation.
If there's a motion and a second, Marty can present this item.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Hartman, council, members of the public. Okay, we're moving to part 2. This is our final hearing for our fiscal year solid waste garbage, residential garbage assessments. Our garbage assessments are permitted by our Florida statute, chapters 197.362, 3632, and the annual rate establishment is required by Town Ordinance 2002-08. Our proposed changes as compared this year as compared to last year, you will see a range depending on your lot square footage. Rich Strum, our controller's got a red PowerPoint. You will see everyone pays in the middle the solid waste costs per unit. The only variable is our bulk waste cost per unit, and that varies based on your lot tranche size. And the lot tranches go from 0 to just under an acre of 41,200, all the way up to 170,000 and greater than 107,000. This is your lot square footage. The decreases, all in the red. Red bleeding is good tonight. You will see the smaller one has a $21. These are annual basis, $21.77 decreases. Up to the larger sizes will have a $68.63. Overall, we proudly propose a decrease in all residential categories, averaging 5.4%, depending on your lot size square footage. And this occurred due to successful legal and management negotiations where we obtained a permanently reduced bulk disposal maximum generation factor from 4.67 to 3.73 tons per unit per year. And that reduction is partly offset this year by our annual collection element contract adjustment, and it reflects the town council policy of full cost recovery. A interesting look back on a historical perspective is that the rate for all the ranges average higher retroactive from fiscal year 2012 by an overall average of less than 8% over 8 years, which is only a 1% increase annually each year for the past 8 years. So we're very proud of that. And that's all I have for tonight. I'd like to turn it back to Mayor and Council for any public comment, questions, and direction. Thank you.
Any public comment on this matter?
So I have more of a question on bulk waste, and I'm not sure if this is the proper place to ask, but my current bulk waste is 600 and something, 675, 600 and change, where like my father's property is 195, but yet we're all only allowed to put out the same amount. So that doesn't seem really fair. Is there any way to relook at that and say, hey, if we're paying 5 times somebody else, we should be able to put more out than somebody that's paying way less? Or is it set in stone that it just goes off property size and that's it?
We'll answer when if anybody else has any other questions. Any additional questions? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Marty, could you answer that for her?
I'd like to turn that back to the town administrator.
Okay.
To give an answer on that regard.
Andy, you're up.
Thank you, Ed.
I'm sorry, Mayor, what was the question?
The question was
I
about
was
bulk.
answering
She
another
pays
question.
600 and something dollars for hers, and her dad's is 100 and something dollars, but yet they only get to put out the same amount of bulk.
Once again, that was the methodology that was determined similar to the fire study that outlined the parameters. It's not something that staff has any leeway with. It's something that council can go back and revisit, but it would involve a study. It's certainly not something we're prepared to discuss tonight, but we can certainly address that going forward if you'd like.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I don't think that's a great answer for you at this time, but it's the best we can do for the moment.
Doug, can I just mention something that's been
Go right
discussed
ahead.
year after year? Jennifer, essentially the thinking is the smaller lot, even though they can only put out, the same amount as a larger lot, because I'm on the biggest category myself, I had the same argument. The theory is your father's going to put out less frequently than I would, where I put out bulk with palm fronds almost every time. So that was the thinking that, even though the limit is the same on a per dump, I'm going to contribute more to the waste stream than somebody else would in a smaller lot. Theory.
Yeah.
Sure.
Correct.
Any additional council member comments?
Thank you.
No? Call the question.
Councilmember Hartman?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jablonski?
Yes.
Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Number 7, please.
Ready?
This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving and adopting the tentative millage rate for taxation of real property lying within the boundaries of the Town of Southwest Ranches for the 2019 through 2020 fiscal year, commencing October 1st, 2019, and ending September 30th, 2020, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor,
Yes.
prior to Marty's presentation, I'm sorry to tell you, a lengthy statement that I need to read into the
Go right
record
ahead.
as part of tonight's proceedings. So pursuant to Florida Statute 200.065, Section 2, Paragraph E1, the first item to be discussed tonight is the percentage increase, if any, in millage over the rollback rate and why. For fiscal year 2019-2020, the town of Southwest Ranches, Florida is considering a levy of 4.6564 mills, which is also equal to the rollback rate and therefore represents a 0% increase over the rollback rate. Actually, property owners with no change in their net taxable value will receive a real cash reduction of 3.75% in their town of Southwest Ranches portion of their tax bill due to the reduction of the millage rate from 4.8311 mills to 4.6564 mills. Although the town does have annual increases primarily from higher contractual costs pertaining to the third year of a 5-year public safety services contract for both police and fire rescue, these expenses are able to be strategically offset to enable the town to lower the millage rate from the prior fiscal year via the following. The current economic environment supports higher conservatively forecasted fiscal year 2020 operating revenues, i.e. increased building, permitting, and zoning, as well as state revenue sharing. 2, a growth in net new taxable values of almost $25 million, representing 1.64% of 5.39% in total townwide growth. A significant reduction in excess of $216,000 in legal department budgeted expenditures. Lower debt interest expense due to Federal Reserve Bank lowering of interest rates, as well as an overall lower outstanding principal balance. No material impact in fiscal year 2020 to the general fund from Florida Statute 170.04, Section 4, which granted a 100% fire assessment exemption to all vacant agricultural land in the prior year. Quality of life and level of service improvements. Millage-funded program modifications are less in number and dollar scope. Capital improvement projects, which we call CIPs. Millage-funded CIPs are also less in number and dollar scope. The Transportation Fund annual operating deficit is 60% funded through its available restricted fund balance. Millage funding for the 6th year of a town roadway surface refacing and drainage project through the Transportation Surface Drainage Ongoing Rehabilitation Capital Improvement Plan, also known as TSDOR, increased $174,267 from $450,000 to $624,267, or 0.4439 mils. Finally, this budget provides for the funding of some program modifications, including quality of life and service level improvements, public safety, parks, recreation, open spaces, and other transportation capital improvements. The millage for operating purposes without the Tisdore project is 4.2125 mils. After numerous advisory board meetings, council discussions, and a budget workshop, the revised budget totals $18,218,318. This includes a general fund budget totaling $12,795,993, just over half of which provides for police, fire protection, and rescue services. A capital projects funds budget totaling $275,039 to not just maintain facilities, but also improve our public safety as well as PROS, parks, recreation, open space, infrastructure. Special revenue funds budget comprising of the transportation fund totaling $2,108,325 to maintain as well as improve streets, roadways, and drainage, and the volunteer fire fund totaling $202,506. A debt service fund budget totaling $1,028,791, which provides for 1 year of principal and interest payments on existing loans, as well as for repayment of the town's emergency line of credit due to Hurricane Irma. And finally, an enterprise fund comprised of the solid waste, bulk waste, and recycling utilities budget totaling $1,807,664. The millage rate and the budget require 2 public hearings. The initial hearing is tonight, with the final hearing and adoption scheduled for 2 weeks from tonight, Thursday, September 27th, 2019, at 6 p.m. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Marty.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to move into the PowerPoint right now. Excellent job, Town Administrator Andy Burns. And now we go into the tentative millage rate portion, our first public hearing tonight. We're going to show you PowerPoints for those of you who'd like to follow. It's up on the screen or you have them in your hands. We're going to give you a millage comparison of our Tisdore, our current year as compared to our next year. We're going to give you municipal rates compared, and then we're going to show you our millage, a percentage of our millage to the overall total direct and overlapping millage that you receive in your trim notice forthcoming in November, this November. First, our Tisdore. The proposed tonight, you will notice it only has a 0.4439 mils. It is an increase from last year's 0.3342. We are proposing an additional increase for our Tisdore project, which will represent the millage-funded portion. We are budgeting a carryover, which we have done this year from 2 years prior. So we're in the neighborhood, do the expenditure every 2 years. We have over $1 million set aside for Tisdore for next year's budget. Our municipal millage rate comparison, currently for this year, we are in the 8th lowest combined operating and debt millage in Broward County. The proposed fiscal year 2020 millage rate, that is, which we're going back to the rollback rate, and that includes Tisdore, favorably moves us to the relative position of number 7th lowest of the 31 municipalities. Accordingly, the relative position of Southwest ranches among Broward County municipalities still remains approximately within the upper 25%, 22.58% to be exact. There are 24 municipalities that are proposing millage rates higher than Southwest ranches for fiscal year 2019-20. The PowerPoint slide you will see, it's highlighted in dark green. You will see we are favorably moved up from number 8 to number 7. The Important thing to realize is this is combined millage, city to city, town to town. It not only includes our operating, but includes debt. Now, in our case, Southwest Ranches, we have no debt millage. Other towns do have debt, general obligation debt. So, in that regard, we're still ranked 7th, total combined. You will note that most of these municipalities, when you start getting to 11, they're over 6 and higher. 7 as you move down to number 21, and some, which you're able to do, normally the limit is 10 mils for operating, but when you're allowed to go over when you have debt. So we actually haven't seen that just the last couple of years, to have a municipality at number 31, Lauderhill, at 10.8398. So we're half, less than half than the highest town millage. Okay, now we're moving to the direct and overlapping property tax rates. This is our 2020 proposed per $1,000 of assessed taxable value. Now, the thing to remember is that property owners are also subject to the Southwest Broward Drainage District and the Central Broward Water Management District assessments. And these are not millage-based. They are non-ad valorem portions. So you will see, and it's important to know, when you get that bill, it's not all coming to us. The total millage on the far right, you'll see it's 17.9904. Ours, a little bit greater in font size, 4.6564, represents 25.88%. So the total amount you pay with your discount, we only receive 25.88%. It's important to realize. Now you look at the combined history. Now this is combined mill rate history for all of Southwest Ranches. And the unusual thing you'll note, and I know the town administrator wanted me to mention, is you see the fiscal year 2020 is higher than fiscal year 2019. But ladies and gentlemen, that's not because of the town of Southwest Ranches. That is because of the other taxing authorities. More directly specific, it's the school board. School board has a big jump up in this year, causing the overall tax rate. So that is something you all need to be aware of, because if they would all be the same, then our reduction would have been a lower rate. But because the school board and some portion of the Broward County taxing authorities are greater, it offsets our reduction. So we're glad to provide that to you from the town of Southwest Ranches, at least a reduction somewhere. That's all I have. Public comment, turn it back to you, Mayor. Questions, comments, and then the voting. Thank you.
Any public comment on this matter? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Back to us. Any discussion on the matter? Nothing? Call the question.
Councilmember Hartman?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jablonski?
Yes.
Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Mayor, the final item is an ordinance on first reading. It's an ordinance of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving the budget of the Town of Southwest Ranches for fiscal year 2019-2020, commencing October 1st, 2019, and ending September 30th, 2020. Providing for a budget basis, providing for expenditure of funds, providing for carryover of funds, providing for notice, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
We need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Mayor, we're on our last phase of our budget hearing tonight, and this involves our total tentative budget, the proposed budget in our general fund, as the town administrator has read, Where do our funds come from? That's the $12,795,993 portion. You will see most of it comes from our 4.6564. That's our ad valorem property tax revenue. Our special assessment revenue, as revised, that's slightly decreased due to your council action from the August 20th special meeting. Franchise and utility taxes are third, works it all the way down to a small portion of utilization of fund balance. Where it goes, which is normal and expected, you will see the primary component, far right, green, 6 million of the 12,795,993, 6,795,510 represents our public safety. That is our Davie Fire, our Davie Police, and our volunteer fire components. Your general government makes the next step, executive, legal, finance, and others. The general government transfers, those are your capital improvement projects. Your TISDOR is in there. And then it tapers down all the way to community services portion of $268,712. Going into our general budget assumptions, now we're moving into the big green book, also available online for your use. Oh, and on the front desk, if you ever come to town hall, we have that available for you for use or the adopted and proposed when the adopted is issued. So our general budget assumptions, it is a summary document. The objective is to keep rates low as possible while meeting cost. No additional borrowing is proposed. We utilize conservative projections, revenue and expenses, and the goal is maintaining our service levels while addressing town council policies as well as priorities. Our program mods as funded, we have 10 proposed, all in the book. And we're just showing you tonight on the slides the funded modifications. We've got a whole gamut of not funded items, wishes, that I invite you all to look at, that management has proposed, that could take place in later periods of time based on town resident input and council priorities. The ones that are funded tonight are our town hall improved security. We are proposing a council chambers camera, information technology replacement program throughout town hall. We're in the midst next year of our 20th anniversary celebration. We invite all of you to come out then, and that's in the planning phase right now. The town hall exterior repainting will take place. The website redesign and ADA compliance, and then a newly proposed is a townwide vehicle replacement program for next year. Our program modifications funded that do not have millage impact. This primarily comes from the fire assessment fees. Our volunteer fire department safety equipment, which includes bunker gear replacement program, our SCBA mask fit certification equipment, and finally, as revised, a fire protection rate assessment study. Moving to our capital improvement projects, we have 5 funded, which include our fire wells replacement and installation. That is also no millage impact. We're making further progress on our Frontier Trails Conservation Area. That's under construction right now. We're planning a lot of it being grant and FEMA due to obtaining funds from FEMA for our town hall complex safety, drainage, and mitigation improvements. And finally, as it relates to our transportation projects, we have our TISDOR and drainage, and we've shown that already to you previously because TISDOR require separate funding from the regular operating millage. Okay. I'm all done with my presentation. Back to you, Mayor, and Council, for any public comment or questions, please.
Thank you. Any public comment on this matter?
Good evening, Newell Hollingsworth, 199th Avenue. If all of you would turn to page 10 of the book, title it the Proposed Program
guessing that's-
Modifications. It's a not funded millage. One of the orphan projects I had was the map of all the drainage projects out west.
Yeah.
I was told as soon as I presented it several meetings ago to you, the cost was not $50,000, but $200,000 at least. Well, it is the responsibility of the engineering department to update all of these yearly for your consideration. If you'll take a look, 3 from the bottom of the first box, you'll see Transportation Fund, Stormwater Master Plan, $50,000. That is the updated cost given to you by the engineering department for this project, not $200,000. By them saying $200,000, you guys just blew it out of the water. I'm positive of that, because I would have. But their updated list that they gave you is $50,000 for the approximate cost. I suggested you do it over a couple of years, which only be maybe $10,000, $15,000 if you could scratch it together and start this project, which has been on the books and requested since 2005. That's 15 years of budgets, kicking it down the road. I also told you that you're losing money because there isn't the need for when Michelle Milgram's office looks at it and says, well, there's a drainage project that's supposed to go there. You've got to pay part of it. May I have another minute?
Give you another minute.
Thank you. So, since engineering's latest update is $50,000, I'd like for you to reconsider it because it's right here in the book, black and white. And he started working on this and gave you all the updated figures on all the projects, which was his mandate, as of January when he was given that mandate by the administration. Thank you.
Good evening, David Sears, 5501 Southwest 130th Avenue. I see $17,500 for vehicle replacement. Have we thought about replacing some of these police vehicles that are still from when BSO was here? We might want to think about doing that since they're $6.7 million of the budget, and these guys driving around in vehicles over 100,000 miles. Might be a little smart to maybe replace some of those vehicles so they're not broken down and we have Town of Davie in there, and you don't see Town of Southwest Ranches on the bottom of it. Seen a lot of that lately on Sterling. Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Back to the council. Any discussion on this item? No? Call the question.
Councilmember Hartman?
Wait. You weren't on.
Councilmember Hartman?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jablonski?
Yes.
Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mayor, we have 20 minutes till the advertised items on the 7:30 agenda. But there was an item that came up between those that we were going to add on to the 7:30 agenda that we can discuss now if you all should choose. And that is what to do about the unfortunate resignation of Councilmember Fisickelli. Because that's not an agenda item on either agenda, if you would like to discuss that item now, we have 20 minutes.
Go right ahead, and I'd like you to explain it from the beginning.
Sorry, Andy?
Andy?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, for the public, they may have just heard for the first time that Councilmember Fisickelli has resigned. And he did resign his office as of last Friday due to some health challenges that he's facing right now, and it's become increasingly difficult for him to get here and attend meetings. So he has resigned from the town council, and that's the vacancy discussion that Keith was leading into. So you're leading into a discussion that I thought the public might not be aware that we had that situation.
I apologize for that. Some people knew, some people.
So if you'll lay it out, please.
Sure. It's a, obviously, we wish, at least I wish, Councilmember Fisickelli well, and incredible service, 19 years of advocacy for the town. We're faced with a very difficult scenario in that we have a town charter provision that states clearly that if there is a resignation or a vacation of a seat, an empty seat, that if there is more than 1 year left on the term, that seat shall be filled by a special election no less than 60 days, no more than 120 days following the vacancy. Okay. As a result of that charter provision, and let me just explain the other one, the secondary charter provision says if there's a vacancy less than 1 year from the expiration of the term, then it shall be by board appointment. The council would appoint the successor. The resignation clearly falls before November, I guess it's November 4th. So as a result of that, pursuant to the charter, it should be by special election. As a result of that, Russell first contacted the supervisor of elections and said the town council needs a special election to fill the vacancy caused by the resignation of Councilmember Fisickelli. The supervisor of elections wrote back saying that as a result of updates to the voter roll, which I think they do every odd year, that they are physically unable to hold a special election in the town until March of 2020, which would be problematic for a multitude of reasons. One, it violates our charter. Two, by March of 2020, you're within the 1 year period where you all could appoint, okay? I've done massive amounts of case law research for my own interest, not billed to the town, for anyone asking. I've looked at AG opinions, and this is truly uncharted territory because there is not one reported decision where the supervisor of election just says, sorry, I'm not going to comply with the special election requirements within your charter. You have multiple choices as a council that you can make here. And I'll outline a few of them. And one of them, Councilmember Hartman called me on yesterday, and I like the approach, and we drafted it up, and you can discuss that in a minute as well. But here are the general choices that you can do. You can essentially violate the charter provision and go with the March special election as outlined by the supervisor of elections, which is problematic for the violation of the charter. You could appoint the replacement now, which would violate our charter now. There are some that state that you can appoint a replacement after November 4th. To me, that would still violate the charter, but it is an option. Option 4, you could sue the supervisor of elections in a declaratory action to force a special election, which could delay the process even further and unfortunately would be costly. 5, which is what Councilmember Hartman, please correct me if I'm wrong, has suggested, and I support what he states, is we seek an immediate Attorney General opinion on how to deal with the issue of the supervisor's inability to conduct the election within our stated time frame. Those are the general options, you know. There's a 6th option, which I don't support, but it's out there, so I can just mention it, which is don't fill the seat at all. And the reason why legally, you know, meaning until the November 2020 election, legally, it's not supportable because your charter requires it to be filled, and also because of the 5-0 vote requirement, it puts a lot of government at halt for the next year and a half. So this issue is one that is strictly a policy decision because legally we're wrong no matter what. So it's up for you to decide how you want to proceed. And the reason why I say legally is problematic because even if the council supports Councilmember Hartman's suggestion, which I agree with, I don't know when the AG will respond. And so the last time we did an AG opinion dealing with whether or not Davie could serve as our police force, it took them nearly 5 months to render an opinion on that. So I have concern on any single one of these options, and I don't think any option's a good one, but it's here for your consideration.
Question, Keith. Why can't you get, would it be shorter or easier to get an Attorney General's opinion based on us making an appointment because they cannot accommodate us with the election?
Council members Hartman's resolution that he requested that we draft has that as an alternative. It says in the event that, and I believe it's on each of your desks at this point, it says that in the event that the Attorney General, opines that the Supervisor of Elections' inability to conduct the election is deemed to be valid, please confirm that the council can appoint. So it's drafted in the alternative so that the seat would be filled in either scenario. So, and Councilmember Hartman, correct me if I've misstated any of this, but
Nope.
yeah. So this is here for your consideration.
Keith, there was one other option that I wanted to put on the table that that I had originally recommended. I had reached out to the Supervisor of Elections. He and I had a relationship's probably a strong word, but once upon a time we knew each other, so I figured let me just pick up the phone and call him. So he essentially gave me the reason that you had talked about, they called list maintenance. The other reasons he gave were he's got a number of other tasks to try to make sure that our next election doesn't have similar issues as the last election, the last presidential election. He went through a litany of issues that he's got right now. I then reached out to an attorney that I formerly worked with who was, before I knew him, a municipal attorney and is a municipal attorney again. And you know, his comment was, write a letter to the Attorney General and carbon copy the governor and say, essentially, in layman's terms, this guy's not doing his job. So I don't know if that's a viable option. I mean, but it may spark interest more quickly than asking for an opinion.
The reason I personally discounted that option is you have an appointed supervisor of an election, Republican, appointed by a Republican governor, going to a Republican Attorney General, and for them to find fault with the individual that they put in office,
Right.
I personally believe would be highly.
Probably a waste of time.
That's what I believe.
Okay.
But you can proceed with that if you choose.
No. I just wanted to put that out there because you and I didn't discuss why that's a bad idea.
All right, so if we chose to appoint someone, what's the fallout on that issue? If we chose to not wait for the year and violate our charter and appoint someone because it's more than a year, what exposure do we have with that?
You would violate your charter. So potentially.
Can we get in trouble for violating our charter for trying to do the right thing?
Any of these choices have legal risks, okay? Because you're violating your constitutional document, your charter. So while I don't find it to be a huge risk on any of them because we're stuck in a real quandary, if you were going to ask me legally what the potential ramification could be, it would be that any action taken during that time frame would have to be reversed because the person who voted on it was not properly in office.
Okay, so if we do nothing now, So if we did nothing right this minute, we wait till November 4th and then appoint someone, where are we?
I still believe it violates your charter because your charter requires a special election because it's more than 1 year. So even if you wait, I believe it violates the charter, and that's what I'm saying. I don't believe that any of these answers does not violate your charter, which is why I supported what Councilmember Hartman stated, which is let's try to get an emergency AGO to deal with the topic.
That kind of sounds like your only option, though. Because if we don't do nothing and we just sit here, our hands are tied on anything that we want to vote on for a 5-0. Nothing moves forward. The nurseries,
Nothing.
nothing.
Here's my thoughts.
Go ahead.
We've done our due diligence. We approached the supervisor elections. He's unable to accommodate us. Violates the charter, yes, but we have done our due diligence as documented. I think we should move into an appointment process. I think that's one of the things we should be discussing. And the parameters behind that is, I think, a discussion amongst us up here. I don't want to get into that detail right now, but as I understood it, we were going to do that at the end of the meeting.
Maybe we still could pick it up at the end of the meeting.
Well, that's that.
Yeah,
that
maybe
was
we can
where-
still
but
pick it
that's
up.
that's kind of where I'm settling in right now.
Listen, that,
We've done what we were supposed to do, and the rest of the machine is not working.
Right.
But that's not our fault.
right. So we've
And-
documented everything, and we should be
And-
covered.
And we are looking at we're looking at really roughly a 60-day window. If the resignation had occurred 60 days from now, we have a clear path, but it didn't occur that way.
Right.
So we're, I don't know, I don't want to call it the lesser of evils because that doesn't sound right, but
Right.
but we've got to move in a direction. I don't think doing nothing is an option.
I agree with your thought process there.
But, but I'll get into the details now, and we can think about it and discuss it more. But I think it's something that needs to be open, transparent, put out notices, applications, because the individual that we would appoint has to live in District 3.
Right.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It can't be anybody else. If you're across the street, it doesn't fly.
Right.
You have to be
Where the
within
boundary
that
is,
boundary, So I think we should put a time limit on it as to put out I'll even go so far as to put out a mailer to every resident in that household of the opportunity to serve.
It's got to be a registered voter.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And that's why we're discussing this right now.
Yeah.
And I think we should be as open and as transparent as physically possible, the entire methodology of how we would arrive at appointing somebody, and then of course it would require a vote up here. So those are my thoughts right now, as it stands.
I would tell you I kind of support where you're headed with that.
Me too. I think that's a good analogy. I do.
Let's look at another analogy. So we have a charter that was granted to us by the state of Florida that essentially we updated in 2011 to put these parameters in there because they were more or less silent back when Johnny Dollar passed away. We made the change to force the council to do something, okay? And the do something is either run an election, or if it's closer in, and that's within the year, it is appoint. Now, when we made those changes, not we, I was on the Charter Review Board, I was the chair of it, but the council voted on those changes. And it doesn't stop there, if you recall. Just like in the last election where we had the 2 ballot referendums, these were voted on our town. So I don't recall, but everything passed that we had proposed in terms of charter amendments. So the people support what the council had voted to put out on the ballot, these changes. And this is how we conduct elections when we lose a member. Now, we have other things that we may not agree with. and we could probably do our due diligence to figure out a way around it, but that's not the way it works. We have a charter in place that we have to follow. The way I understand it, the only one who can give us a pass on this is the Attorney General. We can't give ourselves a pass. What's next? If we don't like something, or one person doesn't agree with a vote on a specific quasi-judicial item, we come up with a way to work around that individual and we pass it anyway. Instead of having a 5, we now have a 4? No. And I could go through a whole bunch of things like that. I mean, we're limited on our salaries by our charter. If we don't like that, what do? We conveniently figure out a way to give ourselves a raise and bypass the public will? Because they'd have to vote on an increase. I don't see this as any different. The law is there. The charter is there. It might not be convenient. We may not be able to pass some of these things until after November, but we have to follow the law unless the Attorney General lets us off the hook. So, I mean, to me, this is a philosophical thing. You follow the law or you don't. I get what you're saying, Gary, about, well, we've done our due diligence. I think that last piece of our due diligence is getting a pass from the Attorney General. I don't think we can give it to ourselves. We don't have that authority. Unless I'm wrong on that, Keith, do we have the authority to bypass the charter in any way?
As I stated previously, I don't think we have any authority, but we are put in an impossibility situation.
Right.
I do have, and I hate doing it, a potential compromise position, that I'll throw out there. If it's defeated, it's defeated. And that is, I still support getting an Attorney General opinion, but maybe we craft it, if the majority accepts that in the event that the Attorney General does not respond by November 4th, then we will be proceeding with appointment. And maybe that bridges the two areas together.
Good. I like
Sounds
that.
like a good idea. I like that.
I mean, it's time certain, so I like that. I could live with that, even though unless we hear back otherwise, we're still breaking the law.
Well, we're in uncharted territory here.
Right.
Totally. I mean, we're kind of feeling our way in the dark, for lack of a better way of saying it. And,
Yeah.
This hasn't happened to us before in the 19 years that we've been here, so we have to, we have to figure out a way. Because I think doing nothing, as I said before, doing nothing is not an option.
Yep. So in another year, next year, we'll be impaneling another charter review committee. And this probably ought to be something that they look at.
100%.
So that if we do end up in a scenario like this, and there are other ones too, then they look at this and potentially propose some language.
So if there is consensus on the council to going in that direction, what I would recommend is reading into the record Councilmember Hartman's resolution with the caveat that a response be required by November 4th. If not, the council will proceed with appointment. Having debate and public input on that resolution, and if adopted, I can immediately seek that opinion, because I think really time is of the essence to try to get it out.
Well, let me ask one other. I'm good with kind of everything you just brought up and the November 4th cutoff date and whatnot. But do we have any idea what an election's going to cost?
I believe Russell knows from prior.
I can only give you a ballpark guess, but because we would be conducting the election just as a standalone election, we would be responsible for all costs. That's the ballot printing, the poll workers, and everything else. I would say you're probably in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $15,000.
Okay. All right.
So
I'm good with moving forward with this with the cutoff date.
Okay, so Mayor, if we may have a motion to add this to the agenda, and then Russell can read it in with the caveat, and then we can have debate on that and see if there's a consensus. Yeah, Russell said we need a motion to just add this to the agenda.
Go ahead.
Okay, make that motion.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Take a motion. Yeah. Councilmember Hartman?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jablonski?
Yes.
Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to read in the resolution as drafted, but note that there's a amendment to this that seems to be accepted, that there will be a cutoff by November 4th, and after which point it will be appointment.
This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, requesting the town attorney to seek a formal opinion from the Florida Attorney General to determine whether or not the Broward County Supervisor of Elections may violate the town's charter by refusing to hold a special election until March 17, 2020, to fill the unexpired term of a council member, requesting the Florida Attorney General to opine as to whether the town council may fill the vacancy earlier than the town's charter provides by appointment and providing an effective date. Need a motion and a second.
We need a motion and a second for public comment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any public comment on this matter?
Ten-second suggestion, mail-in ballots, pay another counties. No?
Violate state law.
Steve Brykers, 5120 Southwest 195th Terrace. You know, the way we sit today, we have more of a process in place to appoint somebody as a volunteer to one of our boards than we have to appoint somebody to the council. We're really missing a process there. I don't disagree with the motion that's on the table. I think it's a good way to go, but I would be very disappointed if we don't do anything between now and November to put the word out to the community that what has happened, as it was explained tonight, that should be done. To the residents that are in that district, there should be notification to them, and there should be a process in place, such as completing some sort of an application so that people that may be interested in it can put forth their qualifications and put forth their interest, put forth the experience that they have that the town might benefit from, and so that when you all make the decision, you have a good insight into a larger number of folks that might be interested. I think that only behooves us as a town. It helps us to ensure that we get as high a quality person in this position as we can. So I don't disagree with what you've done. I just think you need to go a little bit further and put together this process and kick it off right away, right? Because if we're going to do this in November and we're going to maybe put something out in the newsletter, send out notes, send out letters, this needs to be done sooner rather than later so that they have time to consider it and they have time to fill out the application and send it in. Thank you.
Any additional public comment?
Jason Hallberg, 5751 Thoroughbred Lane. Definitely have to say this is a very difficult situation for you guys, and commend on some of the options and the thought process here. My concern is that the AG's office is going to take a long time, as we heard, 5 months. I like what Steve Brykers has suggested, that we start the process a little earlier, but I'd like to recommend that we give a little bit more time instead of a hard stop on November, maybe December. I'd also encourage to consider using a lobbyist or some sort of extra assistance to get the message across to the AG's office. Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Back to council. Any additional comments up here? We're good.
Yeah, I think, Gary, you got halfway there with notice. I think, you kind of defined the beginning of the process of getting the word out. I like what Steve recommended. I mean, we have a process we follow for appointing board members. They fill out an application, we review those applications and such. Maybe we want to add also, a point where people can come in and introduce themselves to the community before we make our choice. So, I mean, these might be people, we have no idea who they are, which is reasonable and could happen. So I'd like to direct the administration to come up with something we could review I don't know, in a couple of weeks. We can't go months on this. So
Yeah,
that,
review by beginning of October maybe, or the first meeting in October. I don't think, the motion that's on the floor right now, I don't think it's a hard and fast that we have to appoint somebody on November 4th.
right.
I'm saying we have to have a process. I think we should have a process in place and date certain, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, whatever it is, so that we have somebody before the end of the year
Right.
that we can fill the vacancy with, or something like that. I realize this is a work in progress.
So, what kind of application are we talking about as far as credentials and, that they would be filling out, the same as we
Well,
give?
according to the charter, I
like
think
our
Same one.
boards?
residency and
Same
having
one?
a heartbeat.
Andy's ready to step up. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, conveniently, in my last municipality, I have experience with this. Different circumstances, but I do have experience and have been through that process in filling multiple vacancies. And so what we can do, and I'll bring you something in 2 weeks that you can look at, but it would involve an application and requesting resumes and perhaps a letter of interest, why somebody would want to serve. We can advertise that, collect that, give that to you as council members to ponder, to consider, decide who you would like to interview and eventually appoint. But while we know a lot of people in our town, because it's a small town, we don't always know everybody. And so to allow for that process, to allow people to express their interest to you and in effect pitch their case of why they might be an ideal representative, you then, as 4 people as a deliberative body, can look at that and then try to decide who do you like to talk to further and perhaps appoint.
Good.
Okay. The only other thing I'd like to mention is that session starts, if it hadn't started already, for this month, for this year. And so I'm guessing it's going to be unlikely we're going to get a timely response from the AG. But let's hope.
Well, it's committee meetings now, Doug. It's not the regular session.
No, I
That's
know,
for a
but I mean,
while.
it's, things are starting is what I'm getting at.
Things are starting.
So,
Maybe we should all call them.
all right, go ahead, call the question.
Keith, do you recommend,
Yep.
just, is there anything we can do to get this expedited?
My letter will get to the right person, I can assure you.
Thank you.
All right, call the question, please.
Councilmember Hartman.
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jablonski.
Yes.
Mayor McKay.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, now we go into the next meeting.
Yeah, Mayor, if there could be a motion to adjourn the first meeting, and then we can go right into the second meeting.
Adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
2-minute break, you want a 2-minute break? Okay, how about a 5-minute break?
All right.
I'd love a 6-minute.
All right, 5-minute break, and we'll start